Hi again then guys, and welcome to the last individual car review from the 1.32 selection of vehicles. And after today we will of course be moving into the tuning side of those new 8 vehicles alongside the existing speed tunes that I've been doing every day as well. Now this one is a car which many of you know I have, let's say, mixed thoughts on at best. I wouldn't say that I can think of a car that I hate, and I certainly don't hate the Z8. It's not one of those cars that I would put in the boat series, which only has, what, 5 episodes? Because I would not say don't buy a Z8. I just fundamentally disagree with the pedestal that people put this car on, because it seems to have a lot of people who are fans of it. Not necessarily super fans, but there are a lot of people who like the Z8 at least. And to me, I take issue with that because it just isn't worth that kind of attention. It's as simple as that. It's not a bad car, it's just a remarkably underwhelming one given the price. And unfortunately, that price is not just in the game. In the real world as well, it's even more expensive. You're going to pay £180,000 plus for a used Z8. In the game, it's £166,000, and although you could say, yeah, but you're paying for this over-engineered, exquisite piece of performance engineering that's just a pure sports car and an homage to the classic and iconic BMW 507. Now, technically, all of those things are true. But what is also true is that you're paying basically 3 times the price for something that is as good as an M3. And in some ways, not as good as an M3. Now, I touched on that fact briefly in my overarching review for the pack when I said that this thing weighs over 1,600 kilos. So does the M3. And that's the E92. That's a 4-seater, which is a bigger car than this. There's far more technology packed into it, and it has a beefier engine. The fact that this even weighs remotely close is worrying, because it's not like it has the excuse of something like a Fisker Karma, which is full of batteries, or the excuse of a Bentley Continental, which is full of luxury. This is just a 2-seater sports car. The interior is not particularly opulent, the engine is not overly large or even overly powerful, and it doesn't even have the excuse of all-wheel drive to add weight. It's just heavy, for no apparent reason. Now, I'm sure the car is very comfortable, it probably sounds very nice, and the performance is not bad. What I'm saying, and what I take issue with, is that it's not worth more than what a Mosler MT900 would cost you in real life, or more than the Ford GT was when it was new, or the same price as a used Ferrari FF. Those comparisons, the fact that you can even compare the price of this to those cars, is ridiculous to me. But with that in mind, that is my personal part of the review out of the way. What about the more objective side? If somebody else does like it, which is of course well within their right, what does it offer if they choose to put down $166,000? Well, you get a car which is N400 to begin with. It's got a 4.9 litre engine, 395 horsepower, 368 pound-feet of torque, which is probably the only thing about the car that actually impresses me. It's actually quite torquey, a lot more torquey than the E92 M3 for instance. It is heavy, 1,610 kilos, like I said. Horsepower per tonne is not particularly good at 245. That's sometimes lower end sports car territory or high end hot hatch territory. And as far as what it can do, it's good. It is a good car, it's fast. It's not going to beat everything in class, regardless of the class that you tune it to, but I have seen it used on Special Stage Route X in online races, fully tuned, and as long as you have slipstream, it can actually keep up with stuff like Lambos. Again, tuned. Most people are not going to be racing a Z8 around Route X, so what's it like around the track? Well, the crucial thing about this car is to drop the weight, because you can notice that immediately through corners. It is a 2-seater, it is a rear-wheel drive, very low to the ground, exotic sports car, for sure. But it just doesn't feel anywhere near as good as the price would indicate. And that's regardless of personal opinion, it's a simple fact. You can find far cheaper cars that can wipe the floor with this through corners, so if you are going to buy it, it does not have the advantage of something like a Spiker. Wherein, yes, a Spiker is very expensive and it doesn't have a huge amount of power from that Audi engine, but what it does with the performance, or what it does with the power I should say that it has, because it's so light for instance, is very impressive. It's a brilliant performance car. This on the other hand, it's just a sports car. That's just the fact of it. It feels uninspiring. It's just your typical rear-wheel drive 400 horsepower sports car. It brings nothing fresh to the table. It's purely an homage to BMW's own work, which of course manufacturers do all the time, but the difference is most manufacturers don't expect people to pay supercar prices for those homages, and if it is a supercar level machine, more often than not it stays a concept and never even gets offered as a sales vehicle, whereas this one was. Now, is it quirky? Is it unique? Does it have an almost Wiesmann kind of quality to it? Yes, it does, and personally, I do even like the interior, and I think it looks pretty good from the back. But all of those things are purely superficial, and for me that's the problem with this car. It's that one word that describes the entire experience of a Z8. Superficial. It's a piece of rolling art, but in all the worst ways. It's a self-homage to stroke their own ego based on a car that isn't particularly good even compared to rivals at its time like the Mercedes Gullwing, and of all the cars that they could homage, it's an interesting one to pick, but it's just a visual homage. Underneath, it's almost like having a Big Mac at McDonald's and then putting some high-end sauce on it. Who cares? It's all superficial. The sauce does not detract from the fact that what's underneath is nothing special. And that is the problem that I have with the Z8. It's not a bad car. It's just that the appearance, the marketing, and certainly the price would lead many people who don't know better to believe that this is a really cool car that's really good and must be fast given the price. And that simply is not true. It is fast, but not remarkably fast. It does look unique, and that's down to personal opinion, whether that's good or not. The handling is decent, but not anything to write home about. It's a decent enough drifter, but again, so is a 350Z for a quarter of the price. So it's all of these issues that constantly come up, even regardless of my personal opinion. They're just facts. If you talk numbers, if you talk unarguable on-paper specs, which are not down to opinion, it's just not that good a car for the price. So overall, this is one of those vehicles which, and I have my own, such as Spiker to some degree, if you specifically like the car, regardless of whether or not you'll win races with it, then definitely buy one, because you will probably like it. It's not an unimpressive car in any way, it's just not impressive either. It's dull, it's default, it's null. So if you like that, go for it. Otherwise, if you're looking purely to race things, the simple fact is you can get just as good a car for half the price, a third of the price, sometimes even less. So as an art piece, it's interesting. As a performance car, it's okay at best. So overall, that's my thoughts on the Z8, and it's not without its uses. I will be doing a tune for it, so stick around, of course, on the channel for that. But that's it for this review. Of course, I will see you next time, and for now, as always, thanks for watching.